All right, here we go. It is Sunday, the day after the first round of playoff games. We had Notre Dame and Indiana on Friday, and the other three games yesterday. And I've got to say, those games were totally underwhelming and very difficult to watch. I mean, at least Clemson put up a little bit of a fight and kept it a game and moved the ball against Texas. But the other three games could not have been harder to watch. And the game that I thought was going to be the closest, honestly, the Tennessee-Ohio State game, which I picked Tennessee. I thought Tennessee was going to go up there and win that game. I really did. And Tennessee goes up there and just gets their asses beat into the frozen ground up in Columbus, Ohio, in front of a lot of their fans. Tennessee fans, I do got to give a shout out to the Tennessee fans. The Tennessee fans went up there, and, a lot of them, thousands of them, got into the stadium. I would have to say it was probably 60-40. Ohio State to Tennessee fans, that was impressive. At Tennessee, even though their season's over and they didn't get to where they wanted to get to, I've got to hand it to the Tennessee fan base, man. That's a loyal group of fans whose team has accomplished nothing since the 90s. For as much as I can dislike the majority of Tennessee fans, you can't question their loyalty. So they totally got blown out by Ohio State. Notre Dame, I would say Notre Dame blew out Indiana. I mean, Indiana put a couple of touchdowns on the board late to make that game look respectable, but Notre Dame totally controlled that game from start to finish. Outclassed them on the line of scrimmage, outclassed them at running back, wide receiver, played good defense. Notre Dame played a good game and controlled that game from start to finish. That one was never really in question either. Penn State totally blows out SMU up in Happy Valley. 2 pick sixes for Penn State to put them on the board, 14-0 to start off that game. And I've got to give it to the Penn State fans. The Penn State fans, I would probably say the Penn State fans were the loudest out of any of the first 4 playoff games. It was incredibly loud through the TV, and SMU could do nothing on offense. I mean, their offense was totally shook from the crowd noise, and their quarterback and they couldn't get the plays in, but their quarterback could not handle that crowd noise. And I was saying during the game, if you only play in front of 30,000 to 60,000 fans all year long and you haven't been in that kind of environment, that you can't prep for that. You can't simulate for that, especially once the momentum of the game starts slipping away from you. And that's what happened. And SMU could never recover, never do anything on offense. And Penn State just beats the crap out of them. That game was never in question. The closest game and the most fun to watch was the Texas and Clemson game. And Clemson was a bad team this year, man. I mean, this was probably the worst Clemson team since 2010, maybe even a little bit further back than that. But this was a bad Clemson team that got into the playoff because they won the ACC championship. I've got to give it to Dabo Swinney. The athletes that he has right now are not the same guys that he had in 2018, 2019, 2016, nothing like that. Not at quarterback, not at linebacker, not at safety, not at corner. I mean, they just are not what they used to be. Not at wide receiver. They just taken some drastic steps back talent-wise. And Clemson still finds a way to go out there, move the ball up and down the field on Texas. Some costly turnovers. But I thought that Clemson, they went out there and gave it their best shot. They fell short, but at least they were able to keep the game somewhat competitive. That long run by Texas, that 77-yard run right after Clemson scored to make it close, that was the nail in the coffin right there. That was the biggest play of the game to me. So Texas rolls and advances to play Arizona State. The main thing I want to talk about in this video before I get to the a little bit of Jawja Notre Dame, I'm not going to give a score prediction or anything like that in this video, but how impressed I was with Ohio State. And, I've been critical of Ohio State at times. I've been critical of Ryan Day at times. And I was asking myself the entire time I'm watching this Ohio State game is, where was this Ohio State team the rest of this season? I mean, that was an incredible, incredible performance from the Ohio State Buckeyes. They totally dominated that game and outclassed Tennessee. Tennessee didn't look like they even belonged on the same field as Ohio State. And I've got to say, Ohio State, for me as a Georgia fan, Ohio State now, if they can play like that, that's the most dangerous team left in the playoff. I mean, Texas, the teams that I'm that I feel like would be competitive or give Georgia a hard time, could possibly beat Georgia, Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. It's got to be one of those for me. Other than that, I think Georgia rolls through this playoff. I think they will have a difficult time in the national championship game. They could have a difficult time against Notre Dame if the Georgia team that has given me a heart attack all season decides to show up. The Georgia team from Ole Miss, the Georgia team at the first half of Bama, the Georgia team that played the entire game against Kentucky, the Georgia team that played the first 3.75 quarters at Georgia Tech. With Georgia Tech. If any of those Georgia teams show up against Notre Dame, it could get ugly, and it could be a close game. But if the Georgia that shows up against Texas twice shows up against Notre Dame, Georgia's going to handle business and win that game. But Ohio State, man, they changed up their game plan. They looked at what they did wrong in the Michigan game, called this game much more aggressive, used their weapons, their wide receivers, made sure to get the ball to Judkins more. They dominated the line of scrimmage. They ran the ball well. I mean, everything was working for Ohio State in this game. And, you got to give credit to Ryan Day for that. I've been critical of Ryan Day. I'm not a Ryan Day fan. It's just crazy to me that he cannot beat a less talented Michigan team 4 years in a row. Georgia can't beat Alabama, and Ryan Day is having a hard time right now. 0-4 the last 4 against Michigan, and that's unacceptable up there. But I didn't realize this. An Ohio State fan told me this, that Ryan Day had to have Columbus Police Department outside of his house, the past 3 weeks since they lost to Michigan, and he's had a really rough time up there. And for you to be able to coach through all that, block all of that out, get your team ready to play, and dominate a really good Tennessee team. Is Tennessee the best team in the SEC? No, but they're in the top tier of the SEC. I would put them at the third best team in the SEC. And for Ohio State to totally dominate Tennessee the way that they did, it was impressive. And if Ohio State can continue to play like that, they're going to be an extremely dangerous team in the playoff. And they're going to give Oregon everything they can handle. So that's going to be a great game, that Ohio State-Oregon game in the Rose Bowl. I love the Rose Bowl. Definitely the best playoff venue by far. Who else do I want to talk about? I mean, Texas, Arizona State, I expect Texas to win that one. Penn State, Boise State, I don't know. I mean, the way Penn State looked at home defensively, I guess I would give a slight edge to Penn State. And then I got Notre Dame. I got Georgia beating Notre Dame. I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game, but I think Georgia will handle business against Notre Dame. A little bit about that, and this is true for both teams, but I do think Georgia is going to win the game. I just think Georgia is far superior athletically. They've had a better recruiting class year in and year out since Kirby Smart has been there. Better on the line of scrimmage. Quarterback is inexperienced, but Riley Leonard has had some really tough times in his career. Great runner, not as fast as Jalen Milroe, not as elusive. They don't throw the ball deep, which I think plays into Georgia's favor, because if you can't threaten to take the top off the Georgia defense and those safeties can creep up and play down in the box, that turns into a long day pretty quick against the Kirby Smart defense. He's going to stop the run and make you throw the ball. And when Riley Leonard gets put in a position where he has to throw the ball to beat you, he makes mistakes. Coaching, I've got Kirby Smart as a much better coach than Marcus Freeman. However, I do think that Marcus Freeman has improved as a coach this season. I think he's been coaching really well as of late. There's no excuse for losing to Northern Indiana, but I do think Marcus Freeman has been coaching better as of late. But I got Kirby Smart in the coaching matchup. Defense, I give Georgia the edge. Notre Dame does have a good defense, so that really is the whole question right there for me. I think Georgia's going to be fine defensively. Georgia's defense is going to show up and be ready to play, stop the run, and it's going to be a tough day for Notre Dame offensively. However, is Georgia, with Gunnar Stockton making his first start in the college football playoff, is Georgia going to be able to have a pulse and stay on schedule when they have the ball? That's the question of the game. If Georgia shows up motivated, intense, locked in, and ready to play like they did the 2 games against Texas, I really like Georgia. Georgia's going to be fine. But if Georgia shows up and ain't ready to play and we can't do anything on offense, and the defense gets tired, then I will be a little bit nervous. See what happens in this Sugar Bowl. Tickets are pretty cheap right now. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to go or not. So we'll see as time gets closer on that. But I just want to talk and touch on the Notre Dame game a little bit. I feel really good about it right now. I'm not going to make a score prediction in this video. And later on during the week, maybe Christmas Day, maybe Christmas Eve, I'll come out with another video talking more in depth about the Georgia and Notre Dame game in the Sugar Bowl. But so far, I've got to say, very unimpressed with the games in the college football playoff. The first round was a total disaster. So I don't know. I've always been one. I like the BCS. I don't think we ever should have went away from the BCS. You took away all the luster and all the meaning of all these other big-time bowl games by doing this playoff. And I'm sure I'm, outnumbered on that. I'm sure a lot of people like the playoff system better. I like the BCS personally, but that's just my opinion. But anyways, I'll be back with a Georgia Notre Dame video later on in the week, and once we play some more games and we get through these. What is this? Is this quarterfinals? Once we get through these quarterfinal games, we'll talk about those and see how the rest of this bracket is shaping up. Y'all have a good Sunday. Go Dogs.